person refused to sit on the back of the bus. She changed the ride for all of us. Oh, that's the power of one. Her diary found a light in the dark. A young girl's hope touched millions of hearts. Oh, that's the power of one. One grain of sand can turn the tide. One single spark can light the night. One simple dream, one gentle word, one act of love from someone can start a chain reaction. It all begins in the heart and the power of one. While the others threw stones, he didn't judge. He moved the world with the strength of his love. Oh, that's the power of one. One grain of sand can turn the tide. One single spark can light the night. One simple dream, one gentle word, one act of love from someone can start a chain reaction. It all begins in the heart and the power of one. Oh, all the little things we do every day. The smallest step can bring on a change. Oh, that's the power of one. 'Cause one grain of sand can turn the tide. One single spark can light the night. One simple dream, one gentle word, one act of love from someone can start a chain reaction. It all begins in the heart and the power of one. The power of one. The power of
Good morning and welcome to another edition of the Festival of Nations Speaker Series, Inclusion St. Louis. This week, we will be talking about the economic impact of inclusion. My name is Aarti Obenson, President and CEO of the International Institute. The Inclusion St. Louis Speaker Series is intended to inform, educate, and inspire action towards building a more connected, thriving, and inclusive St. Louis. This series runs every Monday from 11 to 12 and will continue until August 23rd. Like I said earlier, today we're asking the question, about what is the economic impact of inclusion in the St. Louis region. In other words, why is it imperative that we work towards a more inclusive St. Louis? And to do this, we put together a panel of very distinguished guests who come with very diverse backgrounds. Join me in welcoming our first panelist for today, who is none other than the Executive Director of the St. Louis Mosaic Project, Betsy Cohen. And our next guest is Vice President at Mastercard. Join me in welcoming Aarti Sharma. And last but not the least, is President of Gitzell Fairtrade International. Join me in welcoming Zellipah Githui. Welcome to all our panelists. We are looking forward to an exciting conversation. And the way that we've typically started this conversation is just throwing out this question, which and I'd love to get your perspective on this. Is an inclusive St. Louis possible? And anybody can go first here.
I will say, I think that, an economic inclusion for St. Louis is possible, but it will take real work because our region has had stagnant population growth for a number of years. And to be a growing region economically, it depends on population. You need to have people who want to live here, who stay here, and who attract other people to come, which is one of the reasons why the immigrant population, our foreign born, is so important to the growth of our region.
Thank you very much, Betsy. Zellipah? To the question, is an inclusive St. Louis possible?
Thank you. Yes, in St. Louis, we joke about the question, what high school you came from? And that question is more to make you feel like you belong to our community, you belong to our region, we graduated together. For that question is asked, when you're not local, it can be a little bit, can throw you off. But when you get to understand that, people are just trying to make you feel like you belong to us, then you get along. But one thing I say is that St. Louis can be inclusive. A year ago, I went through the program, St. Louis Leadership through the Focus program. And one of the things that was really an eye-opener for me as a civilian, as a civilian, is that everybody in St. Louis has to make intentional and deliberate decision to be welcoming. You introduce yourself, let people know who you are, and welcome them to your place, to your neighborhood, to your house, to your meals. Grab a meal with them, so that the richer we get in terms of diversity in St. Louis, the better we get. And having done that, I will just give a little example that having done that, particularly with Gitzell Fairtrade, really showed that once you invite, friends will show up and regions will show up.
Thank you. So it's possible. Aarti, what would be your thoughts on that question?
Yeah, with Betsy's point of view, on having the population is important, right? So now we're here I work in a technology company here at Mastercard. We have our headquarters housed here for all the technology work that Mastercard does. So to attract that talent to come and work in St. Louis, not just for Mastercard, but for all the other organizations, becomes very, very key part of the growth. And then it improves that whole cycle of when more people move here, the economic development of that city will thrive once we have people coming from outside, not just St. Louis or within US, but even outside US. I'm an immigrant myself. I moved here almost 21 years ago from India, and St. Louis is home for me now. So I think that is very, very important. That attraction has to be there for people to come to St. Louis.
Well, thank you all for that. Our every time I go through this question, I really just arrive at the conclusion that of course it is possible. Of course we're making progress, but we can never take for granted that it's going to happen. We have to be deliberate and intentional in working towards including everyone in the development process and welcoming everybody to this community and helping them discover the great diversity of the community and the tremendous opportunities that lie within the community. So that's always reassuring when we have this conversation. And in the context of inclusion, I know Betsy, I'll go to you to ask a little bit about the work of the Mosaic Project. I just started my work at the International Institute, and when I was interviewing for this position, I was researching about immigrants in St. Louis, and I can tell you that I found a lot of key statistics from the Mosaic Project, and I want to thank you for that. But why is the work that you do at the Mosaic Project so important? In fact, you state that you aim at making St. Louis a cultural mosaic because the immigrants invigorate the community. So why is it so? Why is this work that you do so important for the economic development of the region?
Well, the work that was done originally in 2012, funded by the William T. Kemper Foundation, showed that our region has the opportunity to grow and that this will add to the economic growth, the job growth, the cultural growth of the region. Some of the important data talks about the entrepreneurial community, our foreign-born community, starts jobs usually at 50%, 60% higher rate than our native-born community, which is something that Zellipah can talk about. That the entrepreneurship is important, people who come and move here to take opportunities, such as Mastercard, and that we know that the education and the motivation of immigrants are such a positive force. I think some recent data talks about the fact that of our top Fortune 500 companies, half are either started by immigrants or children of immigrants, and that these are so important to the economics of the region. We also know that when people move to our region, they become part of a neighborhood. They contribute by purchasing goods by the neighborhood markets. They pay taxes. They keep neighborhood schools open and teachers employed versus declining. So all of these things add to the goals of why Mosaic was created. We have two goals. One is to be the fastest growing major metropolitan area by 2025 for our St. Louis total metropolitan area. And second is to add 25,000 foreign-born people between 2016 and 2025. And right now we're kind of struggling because we haven't had as many refugees and international students. And we need them as well as we need the entrepreneurs and the corporate executives. We need everybody as a region to be growing.
Yeah, that's really important work, because continuous growth is going to be helpful for everybody. We continue working towards that. I just want to say to the audience that's attending today that if you have any questions as we go along, please feel free to use the Q&A, the question and answer section or dialogue box at the bottom of your screens, and we will be picking up your questions as we go along. I'm going to turn to you, Zellipah. I know you just opened a huge exhibition space of African arts and craft in the region. How will talking about direct impact, how will a more inclusive society directly impact the growth of your business?
Yes, so when we opened the Gitzell Fairtrade warehouse in St. Charles, based on what other speakers talking about being inclusive, so I invited, we as Gitzell Fairtrade invited the St. Charles Chamber of Commerce, invited the St. Louis African Chamber of Commerce, we invited the Greater St. Charles Chamber of Commerce, the St. Louis Mosaic Project with Betsy and the ambassadors. So part of that reason was to have more voices speaking for your business, and being more inclusive in whatever we are doing as a Gitzell Fairtrade, letting businesses know, letting individuals know, letting cities know that we are present here in the St. Charles. And with that, we're also going to offer opportunities for employment, to directly impact growth in this region. We are going to offer places where ethnic cultures can feel like they can go shop or they can go connect. And also, we are going to have a near resource for stores and gift shops that have always wanted to carry ethnic products. Now they can easily reach them here. And as that, we're going to spread all the growth within the area. So by having the warehouse in St. Louis, because we had a choice of where we'd have chosen to take it, without bringing it here, where we are all trying to improve the diversity and the growth of the economy, would be a good place to be. And it's going to directly impact in terms of jobs, in terms of finding those good things that people are looking for, in terms of just rich culture from Africa.
Yeah, so people don't have to travel now to Africa to discover the art and craft of Africa. You can reach out here. And the more people learn about this, how rich and diverse all of this is within our community, the more they will get the exposure.
I will add to that. I can add to that though,
Yes.
for a moment, that when Zellipah invited Mosaic and the Chambers and the African, the St. Charles, they all came. They all showed up. And I think, it takes both inviting and then showing up to show that inclusive support. And I really commend all the chambers that brought their members and really came to show her that there was community support of her growing business.
Thank you. Yes, they all did.
Yeah, thank you. And that's the being deliberate in having a more inclusive society. I'm going to turn to you, Aarti, and we're all lucky to have the Mastercard World Headquarters in the region, and we know that you hire talent from all over the world. But what does inclusion mean for Mastercard, and how is the company working to support inclusion in the community?
Definitely. So this year, St. Louis was ranked, I think 50 out of the 50 metro areas that are owned by Black businesses, right? So for us, when we talk about inclusion, for us, it's generally driving better access to small business loans, to cash for running the businesses, for people to be able to get the basics that the community needs, right? So we believe that when we are able to lift the bottom tier, we all rise together. And to show the commitment to the region, in 2020, Mastercard did announce an investment of $500 million over the next 5 years to the community. And the purpose mainly of that investment was to make sure that all the products and services include technology, and we're able to support that here in the community and provide financial support to the small businesses that are otherwise struggling to get their loans in from the banks. So as part of that commitment, we were very proud to say that, yes, St. Louis was one of those 7 cities that MasterCard had committed to be able to launch all of these financial tools and services into the community. And more than that, expand the access to the capital resources. I think that's where some of the small businesses or entrepreneurs, as Betsy were talking about, is that startup, right? Like when you're starting, you do need that initial capital, and then how MasterCard can help get to that capital initially for all of these small businesses to thrive, that becomes very important. So for us, inclusion is not just saying, yes, everybody comes in here, but then also to, once everybody is here, how do we support that economy to move further?
Yeah, thank you. We full disclosure as well, we at the International Institute have benefited from some of the support, especially in terms of technological education for our clients. And thank you, and we look forward to continuously working with you. Zellipah, let's talk a bit, because all of you have been working in the space of inclusion. I would like to ask what you are learning, because this is an ever-changing and growing field. But as we all struggle with it, let me not use the word struggle, as we all deliberately work towards having a more inclusive society, what are some of the things that we're learning in the process as we go along? And maybe let me start with, let me go back to you, Betsy, to talk about what are some of the important things that you're learning as you implement the work and the mission of the Mosaic Project with reference to inclusion, some of the barriers that you've seen and ways in which you are working innovatively to overcome those.
Well, one area that we have learned is, as we have foreign-born people who are looking for jobs, it's so important to make warm introductions and to introduce them personally to organizations and people that they need to meet so they can be successful. And we also know that many of our companies are now looking to hire a more diverse workforce, and they sometimes need to be educated as well as to what are those skills that foreign-born people bring. Because sometimes the application process can be off-putting and make it difficult for foreign-born people to apply. So if they ask Aarti, to put all of the addresses of where you've lived in your zip codes, well, in India, you didn't have a zip code. And Zellipah has a master's degree from a university that's probably not on the drop-down menu of the organization that she's trying to apply to. So these are things that we're learning about. How do we help connect the workforce needs with the people's needs and make that happen in a way that is positive so that we can have our talent fill the jobs that are needed in our economy?
Oh yeah, thank you. That's actually very interesting. I've been following some of your postings on LinkedIn, and I would ask everybody to just follow your postings, because it's really telling of some of the challenges that you see on a daily basis and how you're actually almost on an individual basis trying to help people navigate.
Yes, I think that we have a team of 3 of us at the Mosaic Project as part of the World Trade Center and the St. Louis Economic Development Partnership. And that gives us a big reach into companies and people. We have now we're up to 45 Mosaic Ambassador companies that work with us to connect people. We have 70 Mosaic Ambassador schools. We have individuals. We have all these connections that are people and organizations that say, how do we help bring the talent and the cultural benefits of our foreign-born community to the broader community? So people reach out to us all the time because the intention is good. And then we use all of our partners and connections and the Immigrant Service Provider Network, the International Institute, everybody working together can make that happen.
Absolutely. Talking about, yes, go ahead, Aarti. Yeah.
I was just looking, somebody just asked a quick question about professional licenses. I can talk about technology aspect of it. And then, Betsy, maybe you can share the non-technology. Like I know there are a lot of medical licenses that people have to take when they move to different countries. But as far as professional licenses are concerned, we work with a lot of organizations within St. Louis. So there's Code a Girl, there's Women Who Code, there's Launch Code, who kind of then let, people get into and it's not just for women, like Launch Code, I'm on their, pretty much on their mock interview behavioral panel, where we interview people and prepare them to get to the jobs. And hopefully, if anybody wants to, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn afterwards. Also, I can help you with any of these resources. But that's how we kind of train people, and then we hire them based on a 3 months, to start as a 3 months into Mastercard. And if we like what they're working and what they're bringing to the table, then we convert them to full-time employees. So that's where we feel that we are able to help out as far as any of the technology degrees are concerned. And these are not degrees, but these are just eventually just to get started, right? So there could be a course on SQL, it could be Java, it could be scripting, just anything that somebody's interested in, we will be able to help them out through some of these organizations.
Thank you, Aarti. Let me just follow up with you on that in terms of what you are learning as the day goes by with your work on inclusion. What are some of the important things that you've learned that you would like to share that other people can learn from and apply in their own organizations?
Right. So definitely, for us, I think, as I said, inclusion just makes it, for me, the passion was that I did my dissertation, actually, how to bring more women into the field of technology, right? So now when I did that dissertation, during that whole process, I really felt that people were looking for more flexibility in their work and things that they can do in their work, and more access to the basic things. I mean, some of the things that when I was interviewing all these women, they were like, oh, we don't have a childcare near our workplace, or, we don't have an adult care during our workplace. So all of these things just makes it harder. So how do we take this data back to these organizations, big organizations that are here in St. Louis, and help them build things around it? So just for example, Mastercard now does have a daycare right next to our main center here in St. Louis. So, a lot of women just drop off their kids, come to office, they're able to go back during lunchtime to keep an eye on the kids and then come back. So I think this may seem basic, but this is a big driver for women to come back into work. We also launched a program called Relaunch Your Career. It's for, this one is specifically for women. Relaunch Your Career is where, I may have taken a break because of childcare or adult care, but now I want to come back. Or maybe I was data admin, but now I want to come in the field of technology. Maybe I was working in a bar for past 20 years just to make my, family needs meet, but I want to come back into the field of technology. So that's why it's called Relaunch Your Career, that you don't have to have like 10 years of experience to come and work for us. So I think for us, inclusion, a big part of inclusion is also to start attracting women, because we all know 90% of spending decisions are made by women. We strongly know that. We all, are part of it on a day-to-day basis. So how do I make sure that those people who are making the decision have a seat at the table and have a voice at the table when building all these products that we are building out there?
Thank you. That's very interesting. Betsy, you wanted to follow up?
Yeah, I want to build on Aarti's comment about the training that people can get to be retrained. But back to that question about credentials and what happens. We know there are organizations like World Education Services that can prove that a credential gained out of the country is equivalent to a credential here for certain fields. But for many other fields, there are actually state regulations about whether you can become a dentist or not, or you can become a beautician or not, or whatever you can do. And those are usually state by state, which prevents many people who have training out of the country as a lawyer or as a professional from getting back into their field. And so there is counseling available at the International Institute. We work with the team under RA there, where there's counseling for people to decide, can they get into a related field? Can they take a stepping and maybe get back into a medical field, but maybe not exactly at the level they were at before? Or do they need to look at retraining? Are they young enough and motivated with the resources to go back and retrain, because our various states or federal decisions are such that you need to retrain? So it's a complicated issue, but the region does have good people who are knowledgeable to help one by one for an individual to decide how they take their professional career forward. It is a challenge.
Yeah, and that's why these programs and all of these programs that exist, and hopefully through conversations like this, we can share more light on some of these existing programs that people can capitalize on. Zellipah, in terms of what you are learning, because I know you've been recently appointed on the Fairtrade Federation's Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Committee. In your work, what are you learning that you would like to share with us?
All right, I'm gonna break that into two things. First, I'm gonna respond the first question about learning here, in St. Louis in terms of entrepreneur, immigrant entrepreneur, and like Betsy and St. Louis Mosaic Project said, entrepreneurs are likely to start a business more than any other person. And one of the things that we are learning, that as offices and as administrations learn that there's a large group of migrants, we've seen, I've been in the US and St. Louis for a long period of time, and I've seen a lot of changes. Even if we go to the offices to get licenses for businesses, we are seeing a more inclusive reaction. You see more inclusive and more knowledgeable staff that know you may not have everything as a deep of a history as somebody born here in terms of business, but at least we are seeing that inclusiveness when we get licenses. So I wanted to call out that. In terms of JEDI, the Fairtrade Federation appointment that I was asked to serve in the Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. Interestingly, because I also work for Bayer, I had just volunteered the same week I was asked to serve. I had volunteered to work for Bayer in our team as part of this committee for inclusion. But one of the things that we've been learning and we've been talking about a lot is when you think about business, the global north versus the global south business, and you think about also maybe the aspect of also missionaries. When businesses or entrepreneurs from the global north go to the global south to start striking relationships, like the one I do with the handcrafters in Africa or in Kenya, there has always been this notion of like, we have come with power. We have the power, we have the money. So we are going to, they claim the artifacts or the work that the individuals in the global south have been doing. And part of the things that we've been learning and talking about is that a more inclusive world would be like, I come here, I'm going to promote the products that you sell in the global north, but you have the knowledge. The knowledge is yours, the workmanship is yours. How about we work with you as more of a supplier than coming with, like have the power and I have the money, so you kind of look upon me. And we go more of being inclusive as team members, as partners, more than being more like powerpreneurs and not give the people in the south or the producers of coffee or tea or the handcrafts like ours the credit, because they've done this. We just need to acknowledge that they've done it, but we are going to promote you, we're going to promote you in the north. So that's one of the intersection of business that we are now talking about. Like, let's look at them more inclusive, like they've done this and they know what they're doing. They just need an exposure to the global north market.
I guess that's what fair trade is all about, is making sure that those who have the talent are rewarded or recognized for the talent that they have. We have some, I just want to say there's been some questions in the chat about people who do not have legal status and whether there's any help for them in terms of getting them into legal status. And I would say that I would respond by saying, if you can reach out to the International Institute, we should be able to support you in one way or the other, or connect you to the right resources if we do not have the resources. But knocking on the right doors would be, we are part of the immigrant network services. So just contact us and we should be able to support you. I will go on to, we have a question, and this is a general question from an anonymous attendee who says that the St. Louis Business Journal published a story last week which stated that St. Louis gained thousands of residents during the pandemic. I'm not too sure of that. I probably missed that article. But the question is, do we know if a significant amount of these new residents in St. Louis are foreign born? Betsy, I don't know whether you read it.
I will answer that. First, the actual data has a lag of really a year to 18 months before we truly know whether there is foreign born and native born mix in the data. My hypothesis from what the article said, that our region did gain several thousand people, was some of that was, for example, children moving home out of big cities because they didn't need to stay there during the pandemic. And so it was, domestic movement of people coming to a less expensive and more safe place. And so that may have been part of this growth that we saw of several thousand people. And I don't think that measurement system was the same as the American Community Survey data, that is part of the government census. So my guess is that it probably was not foreign-born people, but it was others, native-born, that were moving here for pandemic reasons. But that could be proven wrong when we get the official American Community Survey data in the future.
Thank you, Betsy. We have another question from Diane McCullough, and her question is probably to everybody here, and I'll direct this to Aarti and Zellipah. The question is: do your organizations have a policy about supporting both foreign-born and native-born people who are looking for employment as well as looking for opportunities to be entrepreneurs?
So Mastercard supports Nifty, one of the organizations that does a lot of entrepreneurs. And then there was a program even by IISTL that does entrepreneurs, and Mastercard is a big part of that program as well, where they do like a yearly cohort, and you come in, pitch for your business, and then if you win the competition, you get funded that way also. But within Mastercard, we are not an entrepreneur business, right? So we can just support the work that is happening in the community with entrepreneurs, but not necessarily in our own organization. But one thing I would definitely say, if interested, please do connect. IISTL has a program, Nifty has a program. Do connect with them. Like I said, feel free to connect with me, and I can guide you later on how to get to some of these organizations and their programs. And I know, Betsy, because of COVID reasons, we did not have our the technology forum that St. Louis hosts every year at the Union Station. In that also, there are businesses that come and pitch, entrepreneurs come and pitch, and Mastercard is a sponsor for that. Also, the winning business or the pitch wins around $10,000 to $12,000 to get started, and for their businesses as well. I know we've not had that competition for 2 years, but that's another great one, that great way to try getting into the entrepreneur scholarships, if you may.
All right.
Thank you, Aarti. Yes, go ahead, Zellipah.
So personally, I am very, very passionate about mentoring immigrants when they come to the US so that they are successful, and particularly those who want to take the path of starting their own business. I want to be, and I've always been their coach. We also, Gitzell also partners a lot with Vitendo for Africa, with creating a path forward for immigrants to settle and follow their passion when they come here. As far as local born, yes, several of my years have been spent doing craft fairs on the weekends, and I have partnered and worked with a lot of individuals who wanted to start festivals, and the whole spectrum of how do you get to join a festival or a farmer's market. So we have those opportunities, and I would like to continue offering that if anybody is looking to be coached in the path of entrepreneurship.
If I may add one more
Thank
thing,
you.
not specific to entrepreneurs, but generally Mastercard does have its own sponsorship program for people who are looking to work at Mastercard. I know there are restrictions because of immigration laws in general, but it's for people who are not born in the US, for immigrants who are moving here and they need a work visa. Mastercard does have that program as well if you qualify based on the immigration law. So the restriction is not more on Mastercard's side, but it's overall the restriction is what the laws of the country say. But we do have that program too. I am one of the examples of that. I was sponsored and I am here. So we do have that program as well.
Great. Aarti, I'll just continue with you. Before this show, we were talking a little bit about some of the opportunities or challenges that we face economically as a result of the changing times, where people can now walk everywhere. And one of the things that we spoke about was, how do we ensure that people continue coming to St. Louis, even though we know that people can walk everywhere around the world? And why is that really important?
Yeah, these days a new term is popping up called the Great Resignation, where people are resigning their jobs because the technology companies had allowed people to work from anywhere, right? I could be remote, I could work from anywhere, but still complete my job. And a lot of people are resigning there, to Betsy's point, to maybe cheaper living, right? So a lot of people move to St. Louis, not because maybe of new jobs, but because they may be in an expensive city. They moved to St. Louis to be with their family and parents because they were allowed to remote work. So that is going on right now. There's a very big struggle to attract the talent coming back into St. Louis right now. It's a real struggle. We talk about it pretty much every day in our hiring meetings and things like that. But just to prove some of the things, because we tell these things as part of our, when we are interviewing candidates and they ask about us as to what is Mastercard doing to be more inclusive. This is one question that we get asked a lot during interviews back to us. So I think, we truly believe in walking the walk. Some of the things that we tell people, which is very attractive, I didn't think that the impact would be that much. But when we tell people that Mastercard is started working on things where people feel offended, and there are certain technology terms that were started a couple of years ago, like blacklist and whitelist, containers and slaves and tribes. When we tell people that we are now in a process, and it is Mastercard's charter and objective to redo all the documentation. This may seem easy, but trust me, it's not. We are here for 60 years. There's a lot of documentation that has to be fixed, to go back and fix some of these things and alter all of this wording that we use. Because one thing is that I keep saying Mastercard is inclusive, but other thing is I'm walking the walk. I'm telling people, I'm giving examples that we are doing this. So when you come into my Mastercard, you come into St. Louis, you will feel that culture. You will feel that inclusive culture that Mastercard has built in. We strongly believe in DQ, decency quotient. Each one of us is like DNA is DQ. Our CEO has constantly said, even if you're not leading anyone, even if you're not a people manager, you're still responsible for the people on your team. So we kind of take that forward. And I hope when we talk so much about the things that organizations are doing within St. Louis, that is one way to attract people and say, yeah, I think I would like to go and work for that organization, and truly to embrace the culture. Why not move there? Because just working remote, you will not have that touch and feel of what the culture of each of these organizations have. We have great organizations here in St. Louis, Mastercard just being one of them, but we work very closely with all these other organizations to improve our language on these technology terms. It'll be great for people to sink that in and feel that, yes, these organizations truly want people that are of diverse backgrounds and, who bring something new to the table. So that's just one example that I gave. There are lots. I can talk about it all day because I'm very passionate about it.
Yeah, thank you very much, Aarti. Betsy, you were going.
I like the decency quotient. I like that idea, and I do think that those connections matter. And I would say that the Mosaic Project does offer many ways that we engage the community to then connect and welcome foreign-born people here. We have connected local people with international students, the universities that we work with. And actually during the pandemic, we had a program called Zoom Pals, like Pen Pals, where local people did a Zoom call once a month with an international student who had stayed in town, who was cooped up in an apartment usually. So we have that program. We are connected to the International Mentor Program, where local women are matched one-on-one with an international woman to make her feel connected. We also have an international spouse program that we have now over 600 international women who connect to each other. So we are really all about, through our organization and through the other organizations in town, making connections between our native-born community and our foreign-born community so that they can break bread together, so that they can know each other and value each other, because that is what's important on both a personal level and then also on that professional level.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thank you very much, Betsy. I think Ed Moncanda actually was asking a question in the chat room with reference to how we're making these connections, especially between the international or the migrant community that comes here. So
certainly.
Okay.
And the International Institute itself hosts potluck dinners with local people and refugees and other immigrants. And so there's many ways that we are bringing together these groups of people who need to know each other on a social level as well as on a professional level.
Yeah, thanks.
And I'm going to add a little bit on that and say that
please.
from the immigrants, entrepreneurs, and also from the local and also professionals, we do have the St. Louis African Chamber of Commerce that is very, very rich with people from all walks of life in businesses and professional life, and it's a very good way for people to connect. So definitely, that is a place I would reference that people reach out to the St. Louis African Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah, thank you. I think we have actually two questions in the Q&A box for you. And the first one is from Valencia Teams, who used to live in St. Louis, who left St. Louis in 2008 for other opportunities elsewhere. But she has a question. It says that much more opportunities depend on connections and mentoring. What advice do you give women who are working in technology to be able to capitalize on these connections and networking and mentoring?
Yeah, great question. I would say, there are a lot of, St. Louis has been very rich in, for at least, and last 1 year, I've been part of so many discussions just because, and I've seen more women attending those, maybe because these are virtual, and a lot of times these sessions happen in the evening when they're in person. A lot of women are not able to attend because of kids' activities, but for past 1 year, we've had very rich conversations about connecting people together from various different organizations that are here in St. Louis. My advice would be, please make sure you're on LinkedIn, connect with the women who are doing similar things like you are. If you need, I could be a mentor. I would be more than happy to take you forward and connect you with what type of jobs you're looking for. Even if I don't have the job, I would be able to tell you, hey, here, talk to this person, or this person, or this company is hiring, not just Mastercard. I know a lot of people around here in different leadership positions. I should be able to definitely build that connection out for you. And another thing I would say is make yourself known and keep your skills updated. One thing that we had noticed when we started the Relaunch Your Career, even though it's for new moms or new women who want to come into the field of technology, but at least keep your basics out there, right? Like, even though you're starting your career after 6 to 8 years, know at least something of what's the latest in the market, what language or databases are going on in the market, so that when you are out there for the interview, not saying you have to be an expert, but at least have the basic knowledge. So the person says, okay, I think she can do it. If I just taught her, I think she can do it. And show that zeal that you truly want to do it. And this is it. I mean, but please, again, I'm offering myself out there. I mentor a lot of women. I'll be more than happy to mentor whoever needs to connect with me.
Yeah, thank you, Aarti. And Zellipah, I know that you offered here as well. So we have 2 offers on the table for mentoring. Yeah. But what would you also advise Valencia, who has that question?
About mentoring? Yeah,
saying what would you advise women who are looking for opportunities? How can they build their connections and network and capitalize on mentoring opportunities?
So I will say and admit that I'm one of those people who tapped into that much later in my life in the US. And I would say, particularly for immigrants or anybody wanting to join the career first today, mentoring is the key to go. That's a way to go. And there are very different opportunities. There are different opportunities to go around it. Like I mentioned, from the entrepreneur perspective, please definitely be mentored by somebody already doing a business. Join a chamber of commerce, 1 or 2, or from where you live. Join a chamber of commerce. From the career perspective, we always encourage that have somebody who's already doing that. And I know within our community here in St. Louis, we have a buddy system that was started with Vitedo for Africa to merge people, to be mentors, particularly for young people, particularly for new people in the country. They're budded with people who've been here longer time to help them with their path for success. Because particularly for immigrants, we've always left the success of an immigrant to the host. But now we are drafting a system where there's a clear roadmap that if somebody comes, they have access to, this is the path you need to go if you wanna join a career force. If you have a professional, like every time people come with certain professions, they have to start entry level in the US because the education from their mother country is not accepted here. And we realized that if somebody goes and does a course, maybe in a community college, it brings up your other profession. And now, like Betsy was saying earlier on, since the college you graduated in is not in the drop-down menu, by going to a community college and doing a course, now you start being recognized by that. So we are creating a buddy systems where people are being mentored, and particularly women. Women, we want them to move faster. Although, again, when immigrants come, women move a little bit faster than men because women are able to weave the system easier. They're able to jump into those odd jobs to make ends meet. So we're also encouraging the men to also get involved into the mentoring program.
Yeah. If I may add, like I would say whoever's asked this question, make sure you have more than one mentor. One person is not enough. Again, there's data and enough research on that. Over 75% of jobs are truly not posted. They are found through networking, right? We all know that. So your next job could be just by having a conversation, a lunch or coffee with somebody, and you may find out about a job that's out there and you would just go ahead and apply for it. So keep that in mind. A big shout out, Zellipah, you're right. Mastercard is big into male allies. We call them male advocates. We are seeing, Mastercard's, one of the chief HR officer was part of the United Nations campaign, He for She, where we are saying for every woman who works in an organization, she should have a male ally. So please, you can look it up. It's called heforshe.org that we are running this campaign as Mastercard is cheerleading that. So there's a lot that is happening that for women, where we are just saying that just women helping women is not enough. We do need some of these other male around us, because think about it, a lot of board seats are held by male, a lot of executive positions are held by male. That ratio is off. So if they are the ones who are leading in those positions, nobody's going to talk about me. They're just going to talk about their golf buddies and happy hour buddies. Nobody's going to ever bring up my name for those positions. That's why it's very important to elevate us as women together, and then we need that sponsorship from the male allies who are in some of those executive positions to bring those women along with us.
I wanted to build on this question of the mentorship and professional connections, because one of the programs through the St. Louis Mosaic Project is our professional connector program. And when a foreign-born person fills in the form, we make an introduction for them to have a meeting with someone who's in their field, even if this newcomer is not yet able to get a job in that field. So they meet somebody in their field, they have a meeting, and then we ask that professional connector make several more introductions for that newcomer to this program so that they can start making those professional network connections, like Aarti's saying, because often that's where the hidden job market is, when you start to listen and learn. And it also makes people feel professional again, and they feel like they are not losing their sense of self and what they gained from their degrees from their home country. So it's important whether you call it mentoring, which is maybe more on a longer term basis, or professional connections that are a form of mentoring. They all add to that way that we as a region can show that we care and we want people to be successful. We also post jobs, and those are open to foreign-born and native-born, but many companies that want more diverse hiring are posting jobs with the St. Louis Mosaic Project, with the Diversity Awareness Partnership, with the Hispanic Chamber, the Asian American Chamber, with Focus St. Louis, because they want more diverse applicants. So we all work together to make those matches happen.
Well, thank you. There's a lot of questions that are coming up with reference to this subject, and there's one thing that I would really want us to capture the essence of this conversation, that as we talk about inclusive economic growth, we really mean inclusive economic growth. And inclusive economic growth means that creating opportunities as well for the underserved communities, or the marginalized groups. And one thing we wanted to just throw out a general question: is that what is the effect of inclusive economic development or inclusive economic growth on the community as a whole? Anybody?
I
can...
will say that we know that many people of all ages, and particularly younger people, want to work and live in places that have a multicultural community of Black, white, brown, various ethnicities, cultures, languages. And so that makes for an attractive region. And so I think that it's in all of our interests to want to have success of our underserved community, whether those are people born in our country who have not had advantages or newcomers. We need all of our community to advance so that we can be welcoming and grow.
Thank you, Amy. Yes, go ahead.
This, Ari, that when we made a decision, when we were making a decision to open the warehouse, we looked at very many places, and we we considered St. Louis a lot, but we're in St. Charles. The reason we put it in St. Charles is exactly what Betsy has mentioned there, that when we start bringing that kind of diversity in areas like the St. Charles County and other counties, when start bringing the businesses that are diverse, we are helping with the growth of that area. And as people start coming in the region, they will start seeing it's not only the Tower Grove area that is diverse. Everywhere is opening up, and I think that is a trend I would encourage that we all start creating and of opening these opportunities of diverse and inclusive St. Louis into all zip codes. Like all zip codes should pretty be good places to work, because we'll all be intentional and inclusive when offering services and the needs of the community.
Thank you. Aarti, do you have anything to add with reference
I would just
to
say,
yeah.
Yeah, if we are all thinking alike, we will never be able to create new products. I mean, just thinking from the technology and product and services perspective, we do need that diverse background to be included in our key conversations. I mean, there is no exceptions to it. There is no debate about it. We all know the importance that we bring here. And think about it, we're all also in our careers. If these companies are not here, if somebody tells me, hey, 10 years from now you have to move, it's a hard decision, right? So we might as well, for our own kids, our kids are growing here. When they are applying to colleges that are competitive across the nation, we want the best schools here. We want the best teachers here. For all of that, it just becomes very important for the community to have more of these valuable additions that, we may be missing out on otherwise. So it just feels that diversity and inclusion are just, the DNI is just so tightly coupled together. And this is no longer, I hope it's no longer a checkbox for anybody. This is something that is in everybody's DNA. They have to think about interviewing, a conscious decision when you are hiring, a conscious decision when you are doing internships or any fellowships for all of these. When we hire people from WashU and Missouri, Rolla, SNT, it's a very conscious decision, should be a conscious decision for everybody to see who we are bringing in. If that person is looking like me and just talking like me, he or she may not be able to add any more cultural benefit to that overall scenario of my organization.
Well, thank you all. It's amazing how an hour has gone by so fast, and we still have about 5 unanswered questions, but unfortunately we're limited by time, and we hope that this conversation doesn't end here. It is from everything that we've spoken about today, the facts, the statistics clearly demonstrate that the more deliberately inclusive we are, the more we can build a more thriving community for everyone, whether it's cultural, whether it's economical. At the end of the day, it's going to give us a better experience. And the more we project ourselves as culturally diverse, that's more inclusive, the more we can attract people to not just come here and go to school, but to come here, stay here, work here, live here, and help us build this as a even more inclusive community for generations to come. There has been a lot of conversation in the chat box. We've tried to respond and share as much information as possible. But we will be back again next week, Monday, at the same time, and we will be having another conversation. And the theme for next week is really going to be on the digital divide. Especially with the pandemic, it really demonstrated to us that as we strive to build a more inclusive society, we also, Sharma, we have to think technology. How do we close the gap between those who have access and those who have limited access? And we will be sharing thoughts on that with our panelists for next week. At this point, Betsy, Aarti, Zellipah, thank you very much for taking time to share your thoughts and experience with us. I hope that we have inspired at least one person. That's why we always begin the show with a video which talks about the impact of one. For the things that we wish of this community, we can all make it happen. It just begins with the commitment of each one of us, every organization, and we will make it happen. So an inclusive St. Louis is possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you.